Hi there, this is Dr. Michael Burer. I'm Dean of Faculty at Dallas Theological Seminary, and I have the privilege of working with great faculty members. And today I want to introduce you to Dr. Samuel Lee, Assistant Professor of Theological Studies at DTS. Samuel, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to spend a little bit of time with you. The goal of this time is just to get to know you a little better and for our listeners to get to know you a little better. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, so my family heritage is actually from Taiwan. My parents were from there. They immigrated here to the U.S., so I was born here in the U.S. I'm what they call a second-generation Chinese American. We have an acronym for that. It's actually an ABC.
Really?
I'm an American-born Chinese.
Wow, okay.
So I grew up here in the U.S. I actually moved back to Taiwan during elementary school, so spent my elementary school years there, which really helped me retain a lot of my Mandarin language skills, and then moved back here and did the rest of my high school and then college here. I met my wife while I was studying here at DTS in seminary. We were both doing our Masters of Theology together. Her name is Fabrina. She's from Indonesia, so she's Indonesian Chinese, moved here to the States during her college years. Before coming to DTS, she served with the organization Crew, doing campus ministry, and then we both started the THM together, got to know each other, got married. She's currently working with a parachurch organization doing Indonesian Bible study material. And then we have two sons, Josiah and Micah. So two boys. Josiah will be starting kindergarten soon. Micah is a year younger. And as you can imagine, with two boys at home, it's very chaotic, but also very joyful. And we wouldn't trade it for anything.
Absolutely. So it sounds like DTS, you owe a lot to DTS. You got your education here. You got your wife here. And now you have your employment here.
So a lot of background with DTS.
Okay, great. Well, and speaking of your background, your ethnic background, you work with DTS Chinese program. So tell us a little bit about your work there. Well, what's your primary responsibilities at present?
Yeah, so I teach in the theology department, but I have the privilege of teaching not just the English language classes, but also a lot of the Chinese language classes in theology. So even while I was studying here at DTS, I worked under Dr. Chiao, who heads our Chinese department as a grader, a GTA. And then now I'm able to teach a lot of the theology classes in Chinese because we do have fully Chinese master degrees here in our, as well as a Doctor of Educational Ministry degree in our Chinese department. So being able to do that has been a privilege, and also using a lot of my cultural background and my Mandarin language skills too.
So is it fair to say you've got students really all over the world?
Yes.
Because our Chinese students are all over the world.
So when we have classes now with the hybrid model, we'll have in-person students obviously here, but then people on remote video. So we'll have students in Asia logging in, students just everywhere. So
that's fantastic. Tell us about how you came to faith. I mean, clearly we do our work not because we only love the topics, which we do, but we love our Lord Jesus. So tell us, how did you come to faith?
So I had the privilege of growing up in a Christian family. So my mom and dad were both followers of Jesus. So really, my own testimony, I can't really remember a time where I wasn't a follower of Jesus. My mom led me to Christ when I was very young, and I just grew up in the church. I would say, of course, there's times of spiritual growth and maturity. For me, very formative years were towards the end of high school, and specifically my college years, where I think I really started taking my faith on as my own, really got more passionate, involved in different ministries, and kind of started committing my life to serving God wherever He would lead me.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. So how did you find DTS? I mean, obviously DTS had a big impact on your life, and I guess coming here was really a big moment. So how did it get on your radar, and how did you decide to come here?
Yeah, so besides being in Taiwan for my elementary school years, I was here in Dallas. So I attended a church here in Dallas. As I said, I grew up in a Christian family. So just being here in Dallas, of course, we had a lot of exposure to DTS. There were many pastors in our church that were from DTS. We had heard about different professors. A lot of times, even when I was a youth in our church, we would have interns that were seminary students at DTS that would come and serve while they were studying. So DTS, it was never a time where I was like, oh, I heard of DTS. It was just like, we know DTS. One big factor was also my sister. I have an older sister. While I was finishing grad school and working, she attended DTS as a student in her Master's of Theology too. So while she was attending, this was before I came to seminary, I got to hear a lot about what she was learning, obviously be exposed to a lot of that. So that was a big step for me to get even more familiar with the school as well.
That's great. I mean, we have always said that some of our best advertisements are graduates who are
Exactly.
teaching and preaching and whatnot.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your church involvement. And I may be incorrect, but I know there's a large number of Chinese churches in Dallas. Has that been your background?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I go to a Chinese church in Plano, which is a little bit north here of downtown Dallas. It's called Dallas Chinese Fellowship Church. So I've been at that church many years. And it's a Chinese-American church. So we have a Chinese-speaking service as well as an English-speaking service. I serve primarily in the English congregation. That's where my family is. But I do a lot of occasional preaching, teaching Sunday school, a lot of different teaching ministries. I also am currently the deacon at our church. So I serve, and my primary role is in the missions department. So I chair our church's mission committee.
Okay.
And it's a really joy. I have the joy of being able to partner and work with a lot of different missionaries our church supports, both financially and in different ministries. Another key aspect of that is planning and organizing a lot of our church's short-term mission trips. So me and my wife are very involved in that. Since we've known each other, we've almost every summer gone on mission trips, except during the COVID years where we just couldn't travel. But this year we're going in the summer to Indonesia, and we actually get to go with our whole family. So my kids are going, so we're leading a team there. We'll be primarily doing ministry among a Hindu context, but that's another big part of the service I do at my church, and also just being able to be involved in a lot of global missions and evangelism and things like that.
Okay.
Too.
Well, what's been your greatest joy in working and serving in a Chinese American church? Obviously, it's different from my context.
Yeah.
I attend a primarily white Anglo church. But
Yeah.
what's been your greatest joy in doing that?
I think for me, I've realized the more I've grown is because I've grown up in two cultures, almost Chinese and American. When I grew up, especially like maybe when I was like a teenager in high school, sometimes I felt like I maybe didn't belong to a single one. A lot of second generation immigrant children have those feelings. But now, as I've gotten older, I feel like God has really used that as a bridge for me. For instance, serving as a deacon in my church, serving both English and Chinese congregations, being able to be a bridge and connect different, not just cultural factors, but spiritual and different ways that believers view different things. And one of the things I realized that's really helping my theology too. I think one of the strengths in my theology is just having this sort of balance and trying to look at different views and not shutting anything down. And I think that's also come from my heritage of kind of being a bridge between Chinese and American cultures and things like that. So I think that's just been a joy of seeing how even though there's a lot of differences, not just in language, but just in the way people think, that we're all united in one in Christ, and we can glorify God even more with our diversity, but having unity as well.
Yeah, that's great. I echo that in that my service as an elder in my local church has really helped me to think carefully about exegesis and studying the New Testament.
Yeah.
It really hones it in a way that makes us remember that we're teaching students and training people for very practical ministry with very real people that have real needs. So that's great, man. I'm glad to hear about that. Well, let's kind of focus a little bit more on your academic work.
Sure.
When did you first sense that God was calling you into academic ministry?
It's a great question. I would say my path has been really one step at a time, where God has led me and opened doors. I was never like growing up like I want to be a seminary professor or go into academic ministry. I studied at Texas A&M University. I did electrical engineering, so no idea I would be going to seminary one day. But eventually, when God led me to seminary for my THM, even then I wasn't planning on doing a PhD. I've actually found this is really helpful because a lot of times I talk to students now, and they're doing their studies in seminary, and they know they want to serve God, but they don't know exactly what they're going to do after. And I can share with them, I didn't know either, but just be faithful and see where God opens the doors. So throughout my seminary studies, I found first, I really enjoyed my systematic theology classes. I actually was focused a lot more on missions at first, but here at DTS, we actually have cross-listed electives in missions and theology in the department. Those are mainly taught by Dr. Harrell. It's funny, I'm actually co-teaching those classes with him now. So it's kind of come full circle in a sense.
That's neat.
But that really kind of helped me thinking through about systematic theology and realizing I didn't just enjoy the content, but I enjoyed the reading, the research aspect of it, which kind of led me to then apply for the PhD in theological studies. And that was a real starting point for me then into obviously academia.
Okay, that's great. Why couldn't we get you interested in New Testament?
I thought about that. Dr. Chow tried to
I'm
recruit
sure.
me too.
Well, you're getting a little bit of that influence now by working with him.
I think just one thing on that. I think being an engineer, a lot of my background, I realized a lot of the logic, a lot of the looking at different sources of revelation and kind of fitting it together. It kind of fit a lot of my engineering skills. So I think that was a little bit of the reasoning. Okay. But I enjoyed my New Testament and Hebrew classes.
I'm just teasing. I'm happy you're doing what you're doing. So, well, tell us, what are your current academic interests? I mean, theological studies is a big area. Do you have a subspecialty that you're really interested in?
So my dissertation, what I researched on during my PhD, was on the topic of the question on the fate of the unevangelized. So those who throughout their whole life never have the chance to hear the gospel. So really, that is one of the things I'm really focused on. I was really interested in that even before coming to the seminary. That's just a very practical question you hear even among college students in apologetics.
Yeah. When you mentioned your missions emphasis too,
exactly,
I mean, absolutely hand in hand with that.
All of that kind of comes together. And then so obviously, even now after I've finished my dissertation, I'm still really focused on that. I'm looking a lot more, being able to expand a little more broadly to the intersection between soteriology and as well as personal eschatology. So looking at, for instance, different doctrines of heaven and hell, eternal destiny. Okay. So that's one I'm still, from my PhD, I'm still interested in. Another one I've kind of started developing more recently is also looking at my own heritage and seeing the influence of Chinese theology in evangelicalism. So as I mentioned, I teach also in the DTS Chinese department. Many of my students are Chinese. So just seeing a lot of the history of the Chinese church, Chinese Christianity, and then also what Chinese theology has to offer global evangelicalism, and being able to explore more of that. And that's something I hope to be able to continue on as I continue teaching.
Okay, great. So what are you currently writing on at this moment? Do you have a project that you've got in the hopper?
Yeah, so a lot of it's related to the research topics I just mentioned. The first goal right now of many newer faculty is I want to publish my dissertation. Right, so continuing to be focused on the topic of the unevangelized, adding on some of the newer material coming out, but then hopefully being able to publish it first, maybe in a few journal articles, and then as a monograph or a book. And then also, like I mentioned, I did a presentation at ETS last year on Chinese evangelical theology. That will be published in a journal, and just kind of doing some more maybe simple writings and research related to that. And hopefully that can build into a bigger thing in the future. We're actually working on a collective book among all the colleagues in our DTS Chinese department right now in Mandarin Chinese.
Oh, wow.
So that's a project I've been working on with Dr. Han, one of our professors too. So a lot of little things we're hopefully getting to. Yeah.
Okay. So what are you reading right now? Do you have a particular book or that stands out as really engaging that our listeners might be interested in?
That's a great question. I think just sharing back, during the PhD, you're always reading. Yeah. And I've realized as a professor, that doesn't stop, right? We're always reading too. The good news is I think we do have a little more freedom now to choose some of the things instead of all the books assigned to us. I would say, obviously, some things related to my research interests, but one of the things I found I've been reading a lot is just material related to preparing for my classes that I'm teaching. So, for instance, this semester, I'm teaching for the first time a class in eschatology. So I've been reading a lot of, a little bit of modern theologians and different books on eschatology, but also reviewing some just more general introductory works by just books that could be potential books used in classes for my students and things like that. And I think that's been really helpful. I will share, this just came to mind. I think one of the things I've been reading, this is very non-academic related, but because I had 2 young children, the last few years I've been reading a lot of children's books to them. We try to read to them at night. A lot of books I read as a kid, I'm introducing them to them. And I realized being so many years in academia, reading obviously more doctoral level works, just doing that, obviously because I'm doing it for them. But I realized, I think that's been good for my soul too.
Yeah,
just
that's
these
good.
Simple books, simple truths, and yet so timeless and relevant.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah. My wife is a teacher in a pre-K class, and she loves children's literature, and so I feel much the same thing. Sometimes just reading about different animals and things they do is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so. It is, and so I think sometimes needed for us too. Yeah.
Hey, well, to kind of wrap up our time, what has been the most exciting and fun thing about teaching at DTS?
Exciting. Wow. I think, obviously, I shared a lot about just being able to do different research and freedoms on that. I think one of the things I can think of is just because you mentioned, and I've shared how my background going to school here and then now having the privilege of teaching here, a lot of my colleagues now were my former teachers. I think you shared about this before of like having some of my mentors now be my colleagues. Of course, they'll always be my mentors, but being able to have this different level of relationships and seeing how they continue to pour out and being able to have different discussions and a more academic, professional context with them. I think that's been great. I would say in general, just the most exciting thing has to be just the time I get to spend with students, just in classes. Both, I mentioned I have the privilege of teaching both English and Chinese classes. So teaching students in so many different cultural backgrounds, discussing theological issues, but in their cultural context and pouring out into them. I think that's just it's been so exciting. I can't wait to see how God uses them in the future, just like how He poured into me through my different professors, and then just seeing that. I think no matter what, as a teacher, whether we're doing it more professionally in a seminary or just in the church or whatever context, really the students are always why we do what we do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Even to see them grow, I think that's just been the most exciting.
And like you said, it'll be so fun when you see that come full circle and you're more mature, and then you've got some of your students who are now kind of following in your footsteps.
Yeah.
That's beautiful
I'm
to see.
hopeful if God allows, one day I can get to that point, and that would just be amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
Problem.
It was
Thank
great
you
to
so
spend
much.
time with you, and thank you all for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed getting to meet Dr. Lee, and we will see you next time.